She handed the coffee to the man with the dog right in front of the inspector. Her boss didn't yell. He didn't need to. "You're done here, Grace." 6 years of loyalty collapsed in a single sentence. She didn't cry. She just untied her apron, hands trembling, and walked out. Not because she broke a rule, but because she refused to betray a man who'd once taken a bullet for the country they were all standing on. What Grace didn't know, what no one saw coming, was that someone had filmed it. By the time the cafe's morning rush ended, the ground had already started to rumble. 4 military Humvees rolled into the lot. Doors opened in unison. A Marine colonel stepped out, ribbons blazing across his chest. He wasn't there for coffee, he was there for justice. And from that moment on, Grace Donnelly wasn't just a woman who got fired. She became a name whispered in barracks and base camps across the country. Grace Donnelly wasn't flashy. She didn't need to be. At 35, she ran the Mason Mug Café with the precision of a drill sergeant and the heart of someone who'd lost too much to fake a smile. Just outside Fort Granger, the café stood like a second home for people who didn't know where else to go. Her husband, Michael Donnelly, never made it back from Afghanistan. Instead of collapsing, Grace built something in his honor, a sanctuary that smelled like fresh coffee and quiet dignity. She didn't care about latte art, she cared about the veteran who couldn't sit near a window, about the woman who hadn't slept indoors since she came home. Grace didn't just remember names, she remembered stories. And more importantly, she remembered who still needed space to be human. In a town wrapped in porch flags and Old Glory decals, she was the only one who treated patriotism like a promise, not a poster. Every Wednesday at 9 a.m., she hosted Heroes Hour. It wasn't listed online. It didn't need to be. Veterans showed up because they knew what kind of place Grace ran. The first week, it was just 3, her father-in-law, a Vietnam vet, and Louisa, an army nurse whose laugh could wake ghosts. Within a year, there were dozens. No uniforms, no speeches, just hot coffee, real silence, and the kind of nod that says, "I know." Grace would open with the same line, "This isn't therapy, it's presence." That was all they needed. That was everything. Some stories got told, some didn't. Some were held in long, haunted stares, and Grace never asked for more than people could give. But she gave, her time, her warmth, her attention, and for those who had walked through sandstorms and hellfire, that was more than enough. She wasn't a social worker, she wasn't a soldier, she was the heartbeat that no one saw coming. The morning everything changed felt like any other. Crisp air, quiet hum. Grace was behind the counter, prepping ceramic mugs labeled with the names of veterans who drank from them each week. Then Ray McMillan walked in. Marine recon, retired, grey at the temples but sharp in the eyes. His service dog Shadow padded beside him, wearing a red vest. "Do not pet." Grace gave a small wave. "Table by the windows open." Ray nodded. Shadow laid down. Everything was normal. Until the door swung open again. The man who walked in wasn't a regular. Clipboard, navy blazer, cold, scanning eyes. Logan Prescott, state health inspector. He moved like a man looking to shut something down. He tapped on surfaces, opened fridges, sniffed the air, and then froze when he saw the dog. "That animal is in violation of state code," he snapped. Grace stepped forward slowly. "He's a registered service dog." Prescott raised his voice. "I don't care what vest he's wearing. Either the dog goes or this place does." You could feel it, the cafe tightening like a held breath. Ray didn't flinch. Shadow didn't budge, but something in the room cracked. Grace stepped out from behind the counter. "I won't ask a veteran to leave, and I damn sure won't ask his service dog to." Her voice didn't waver, but her hands did. "You can file your report, Mr. Prescott, but make no mistake, you'll be writing it knowing you humiliated a combat vet in front of the very community he fought to protect." The silence afterward was volcanic. Then came a second voice, this one colder. "Grace Donnelly," said Deborah Lyle, regional manager for the cafe's corporate office. She had just walked in, arriving for a surprise check-in. "You've just violated state compliance in front of a health inspector. Pack your things. You're fired." A fork clattered to the floor. Someone gasped, but Grace didn't argue. She turned to Lena, the barista. "Make sure Ray gets his refill." Then she walked out, head high. She never looked back. The next 35 minutes felt like a church without sound. Lena poured Ray's coffee with shaking hands. "If I left the counter, I'd be letting her down," she'd later say. Ray stayed seated, Shadow stayed still, customers whispered, some left, some stayed, unsure of what they'd just witnessed. Then the tremble began, a low, steady rumble, like distant artillery. Coffee in cups rippled, the ground seemed to tilt, and then the Marines arrived. 4 Humvees, tires grinding asphalt, boots hitting pavement. The cafe's windows shook as Colonel Richard Gaines stepped inside, dressed in full Marine Corps blues, rows of ribbons across his chest. He didn't ask questions, he didn't raise his voice. He looked directly at Lena. "Where's Grace Donnelly?" "Fired," she said, barely audible, for standing up for Ray and Shadow. Gaines nodded once, "Then we're here to make that right." The next few moments felt unreal, like watching the nation correct itself in real time. 2 Marines walked behind the counter and carefully removed the cafe's logo. Another carried in a handmade wooden sign that read, "Grace's house, where honor is served daily." Colonel Gaines turned to Deborah Lyle, who had gone pale. "You made your decision," he said. "Now we've made ours." Prescott stood frozen, his clipboard limp in one hand. "I didn't know who he was," he stammered. The colonel didn't even look at him. "You don't need to know who someone is to treat them with dignity." He made a call. Moments later, Lena's phone buzzed. "It's the base," she said, stunned. "They want Grace at headquarters. Today." Outside, the formation of Marines stood at attention. Inside, the crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in something quieter. Reverence, because everyone in that room knew they had witnessed more than a story. They had seen a standard return. And her name was Grace Donnelly. She sat in her truck outside her driveway, still in her cafe clothes, when the message came through. "Report to Fort Granger. Colonel Gaines requests your presence." She didn't move at first, didn't breathe. Then she drove, past the corner where Michael used to walk their dog, past the store where veterans lined up on Memorial Day, through the base gates she once entered as a wife, and now entered as something else. Gaines met her at the door. "Come with me." He led her down a hallway into a dusty room labeled Veteran Transition and Wellness Initiative. Empty chairs, unused supplies. "We've been trying to build this for years," he said. "What we're missing is you." Grace blinked. "I'm not qualified." "You are," he said. "You built healing with coffee and silence. You gave our people something no program has." From the next room, a voice called, "Is that her?" A young vet with a burn-scarred face stepped out. "I saw the video. I haven't walked into a cafe since I got home, but I think I could sit in a place you run." That was it. Grace took the job, quietly, humbly, and that bare, forgotten room became something sacred. Ray came every week. Tiffany, the young vet, started drawing again. Lena brought coffee but also laughter. They didn't just build a program, they built a family. Grace never gave speeches, she just showed up, every day, the way soldiers do. Until one morning, an envelope arrived. Department of Defense seal. "You are hereby nominated for the National Civilian Commendation." Her knees buckled. "I didn't do anything special," she whispered. "That's why you're getting it," Gaines replied. Weeks later, she stood in D.C., reading from her old cafe notebook. "I ran a cafe," she told the room. "I poured coffee, I listened. But what I really did was refuse to stay silent." The applause that followed felt like thunder breaking open a storm. In the back, Ray stood, Shadow beside him, and he nodded once. Not as thanks, but as a salute.